I hate this interview. There are so many good clips here. The Tucker Carlson, Mike Huckabee interview. Two Trump-affiliated anti-Semites deciding which flavor of anti-Semitism they want to endorse. It's fucked up, because Tucker Carlson is legitimately like a very good interviewer. He's just a Nazi. It's very unfortunate. It's you know, closest we get to principled opposition is not in fact very principled.
Ask you a question, like, how much does it matter what Americans think?
Well, it matters every bit what Americans think. That's why Americans vote. It's why Americans have the opportunity to have free speech. We want them to have that.
Okay, so what percentage of Americans support a war with Iran?
I don't know. Do you know?
I do. I think it's around, I saw the numbers yesterday, I think it was like 21%.
Okay.
Is that enough to have a war with Iran?
We don't live in a world where you have a poll taken to find out whether our policy should be a particular direction. Because
I thought you just said that
that's
we
direct democracy. No, we care deeply about it. But on the other hand, do we make the decisions of foreign policy and even domestic policy based on
we
what
care
the
deeply
latest
about
poll
it? In
number
what
is?
sense? If we're ignoring it, then in what sense do we, quote, care deeply about it?
Well, I think we care deeply when we see there's a threat.
No, but about Americans' opinions. So you've got 350 million Americans. Yeah. They voted in this last election on the basis, in part, of the promise no more wars. Okay, so now we're about to have a war. Looks like 80% of people are against it. In that range, let's say 70%, but nowhere near majority support for this war. And it's not direct democracy, but it is a form of democracy. It's representative democracy.
The ultimate form of democracy in our system, in a republic, because we're not a true democracy, we're a republic.
Exactly, right? It's a mediated democracy.
It'll be an opportunity for Americans to vote if they think that we've made the wrong policy.
But they voted for a candidate who said no more wars.
Decisions. I personally think the president is making the right policy decision.
But I guess, but you just said it matters deeply what Americans think, and if the overwhelming majority are against it, in what sense does it matter? Because what I hear is it matters what they think, but it really doesn't matter what they think because...
No, you take it in, you certainly ingest that.
And then what do you do with it once you ingest it?
Then you make sure that you have... No,
you just gotta... It goes out the other end, obviously.
Oh, man. Who is that dude? This is Tucker Carlson and Mike Huckabee. Tucker Carlson is an extremely wealthy and influential former Fox News host. He used to be top of the world, got fired from Fox News in part because he was too far right, but mostly because he kind of irked Murdoch. And Huckabee is a hyper fucking Christian Zionist Israelite type guy who is our envoy to... No, wait. Witkoff is our envoy to the Middle East. Huckabee is our ambassador? What's his official... He's our ambassador, right? Yeah, ambassador to Israel. He did that big conference, remember? In Tel Aviv, where they did like, was it Born in the USA, but the lyrics were about Israel? What was that? That thing that made me want to pull oh yeah, Sweet Home Alabama, but it was Sweet Home Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim. Yeah.
Just 2 days and we are through. Then we start from the beginning. Hashem's holy words begin anew.
Is he even Jewish? No.
We all have come to help Hatzalah, and we want to help it.
Wait, I thought this was a parody? Nope, that is the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee.
Here in God's holy city. Throughout this land, it's saving lives. Sweet home, Yerushalayim. Yeah, where God's words ring so true.
Yeah, so please, it's like your G-string. Please tune it. I don't think these fellas know how to find a G whatever. I don't know. This is why white people don't get to make culture anymore. This is why black people took it over. They tagged us out. They were like, all right, Goyim. Kanye West, representing the black Hebrew Israelites, tagging white Goyim out. That's all right, buddy. You've done your best. Now it's our turn. Oh my God! Didn't you cover this guy yesterday? He was calling for reparations to Israel. Yeah. His job. The point of America today is to like get raped by Israel. Obviously, right? Like in a financial, political sense, in a cultural sense, on every level. Like we are meant to be subservient to the block of interest that Israel is disingenuously weaponized to represent. And Mike Huckabee Mike Huckabee is in the same camp as Erica Kirk. They are both ops whose job it is to front support for Israel as part of a Christian nationalist project. They're evangelicals. The idea being like, we need to support Israel because God gifted this land to the Israelites, and that is part of the holy prophecy that will bring about the rapture, usher Jesus Christ return to the earth, and then save the holy and condemn the unholy to eternal damnation. I don't think they actually believe in that crap, but they act like it, at least sort of. They do both carry the flame very, 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 very much. They're meant to like represent the interests of a relatively small contingent of Christian conservatives. Most Christians are not that kind of evangelical, but there are like, tens of millions of them. So what are you going to do? Like, okay, here, from the same interview, this is language from the U.S. ambassador to Israel. Can you elaborate on the rapture thing? I don't doubt Christian nationalists are crazy, but I never got that angle from it. That's like the main thing they believe. The reason that Christian evangelicals don't believe in improving society and don't care about things like climate change is because they believe they're at the end days. They've believed this for a while, but that's not going to stop them. They believe they're at the end days. They want the world to end because they think it's going to end in the rapture. They want the rapture to happen, and they think that part of the rapture happening. It involves the Israelites holding their God ordained holy territory in the Levant. That's what they believe. They actually take what's happening right now in the Middle East, along with other stuff like climate change getting worse, as evidence that their belief system is correct. More hurricanes, more climate disasters, more winter storms or whatever. That sounds like the end times coming to me. Israel is invading Syria, Lebanon, throwing bombs out to fucking Yemen and Iraq and Iran. Oh, sounds to me like God's chosen people are reclaiming their territory. They actually do believe this, right? Or at least a lot of them do, and they do vote according to it. You can ask them. There's tons of evidence. You can go to their churches. You ask them, hey, how do you feel about X? Their answer, I don't really care because the world's ending soon. They shouldn't be able to vote. Frankly, a lot of them should be in jail because a lot of them rape their kids. They're evangelical Christians. Just a couple 10 million of them, 20, 30, 50, I don't know how many million. A lot of people. A lot of them rape their kids, Really bad people. Really, really, really bad people. Turns out you can justify a lot morally when you think the world is about to end, and it's about to end because Jesus Christ is saving you and taking you to heaven. It's a mental model that is designed to cultivate mental illness. Vosh, my MAGA family, also believes the world cannot end until Israel takes Palestine. There you go. Yeah. It's a lot of people. Aren't most pedophile priests Catholics? You only hear about that because Catholics have churches in an organized structure. I would bet anything that Christian evangelicals have a significantly worse rate of child abuse than Catholic churches. You don't hear about it with the Protestants because the Protestants don't have a pope. They don't have an organized community to cover up anything. But dude, Google Christian minister child rape and you'll find results from the past 24 hours. Okay, I promise you, it's really, really bad.
In the entirety of the world, there are about 16 million Jews total, and 8 million of them live here. The rest live mostly in New York or South Florida and a few other places.
Okay.
So this is a small population of people. They have connection to this land, historically, biblically.
Do they?
Yes, they do.
If Bibi's family, we know they lived in Eastern Europe. There's no evidence they ever lived here. He's not religious.
But
in what sense?
How do we know that?
Do you have his family tree? No, we don't.
Many such cases, you think other religions are better. I think that American Protestantism is probably the most evil religion in the world. Yeah, for sure. Mostly because it has so much power at its fingertips, right? Because they control like the presidency. But so a lot of that is just a consequence of what they're adjacent to, but also like a lot of them are an actual death cult. They're ideologically parallel to ISIS. Catholics aren't like that. Eastern Orthodox aren't like that. Most Muslims aren't like that, you know? ISIS is, sure, but like ISIS is at its height a couple million, you know, crazy people. The evangelicals, there are far more than them.
Do you?
He doesn't. So no one does. That's the point. So how do we know that he has any connection to this land at all?
And if there has been a practice of Judaism and a connection to the language, the Bible, the land.
His ancestors didn't. He doesn't practice Judaism in any rigorous way. His ancestors didn't live here. They didn't speak the language, and there's no evidence they ever lived here. So on what basis does he have a right to be here?
Very much speaks the language. He has fought for the land. His family has fought for the land.
You're dodging a very obvious question, which is, where does this right come from? And the reason it's meaningful is because there are a lot of people in the territory that Israel controls today, particularly in the West Bank.
Have there been any terrorist attacks by evangelical Christians, though? Oh my God, guys. Yeah. For one, George Bush literally framed the entire Iraq war as a holy war. God whispered to him in the night and gave him instructions to wage millions of people. I'm not, you're not getting me into this, okay? I'm sorry. If you, unless you are American and you have lived around evangelicals, I don't want to hear, I don't want to hear it, okay? I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Rage bait critical hit. Oh, I got black flashed off that post. Calvinists are worse, though. Yeah, but Calvinists don't control the presidency. Evangelicals have controlled the Republican presidency at the very least since the 80s.
Who, through genetic testing, we can know their families have been here for thousands of years. We don't know whether they practiced Judaism, whether they were Samaritans, pre-Islam. We don't know that. A lot of them we know have been Christians for 2,000 years. They have less of a right to the land than some.
Okay, Vush, evangelicals don't cut people's heads off. Okay. I need you guys to understand. Evangelicals are the main cultural force behind the climate change denial movement. They're responsible for effectively all of the abortion bombings, a significant number of interpersonal murders along reactionary lines, interracial marriage, gay people, so on. The Iraq war, the war in Afghanistan, straightforwardly framed from their perspective, by the way. What's happening in Israel right now, the literal current genocide of Palestinians, American evangelicals are the ones fronting it, paying for it, buying their weapons, providing them cover in the United Nations. Even just along the climate change, I need you to understand, this is a group of tens of millions of people who want the world to end because they think that when it does, their fucking boyo, Christ, is going to come down and jerk them off personally. All right? These people they're not just okay with climate change. They actively want it to happen because they think that it is a sign that Christ is coming. It's not a joke. It's not a bit. ISIS could never even dream of doing as much damage as them. There's not even within orders of magnitude. It's not a bit. It's real. It's a real thing. This is the most boring kind of atheist. Dog, it's true. I don't know. Your anti-Reddit atheist, like self-cringe astigmatism is a ideological and intellectual sign of weakness, you know? You're like, oh, I don't want to be like those guys. Which those guys? The ones that are right? You don't want to be like those guys? Are you not familiar? Do you just live online? Have you not experienced what religious fundamentalism actually looks like? Do you have any idea? You only hear about ISIS because Western media tells you about it. You don't even hear about the shit back home. This is just straightforwardly true. A lot of people don't really understand. A lot of people wonder, well, how are Republicans okay with so many bad things happening? Can you explain to me a single thing in America that would matter if you believed that God was ending the world within the next 10 years? ICE abuses, the Constitution, climate change, war across the world, even a nuclear war. What would that do? All that would do is bring about the end. There is literally nothing. That's why these people are so malleable. It's why these people are so unconcerned with the state of the world. It's why they're so selfish. They don't care. Ideologically, they don't care. It's a bad problem. It's a really bad issue. No, there are people in chat. There are people in VGG, there are people in YouTube chat, they're agreeing with me. You should listen to them, you know? I grew up in an evangelical cult. Vosh is 100% correct. I've heard this exact argument from my conservative parents. Shit sucks. My coworker literally said to me recently, "Don't worry about ICE. It's just the rapture coming." It's like, if this is what they believe, how do you expect to convince them with arguments about like, well, did you know that if we design our roads to not have slip lanes on the right turn, we could decrease traffic fatalities by 6% year over year? Why? They don't fucking care, dude. They want you dead. They don't fucking care, dog. They don't give a shit. I feel like the vaccine scheduling misinformation coming out from the CDC is really unhelpful. You know, RFK Jr. is like discouraging us from technology that's going to save lives. They don't care. They want all lives to end because our souls are to be ushered up into heaven, or we are meant to languish here on earth as devils retake it. I'm just saying, like, so with all that being said, you know, Mike Huckabee represents these people, and that's why he is the way he is. Because I've seen people be like, what the fuck, why is Huckabee like this? Like, why? I don't know if you've been paying attention to the clip here, but like Mike Huckabee is essentially saying that, and this is an ambassador, this is a government official, saying, you know, Israel deserves all the land in greater Israel because God gave it to him. This is their ideology.
Families have been here for thousands of years. We don't know whether they practiced Judaism, whether they were Samaritans, pre-Islam. We don't know that. A lot of them we know have...
So I did in fact get black flashed by the earlier chat sentiment, so I'm just going to read some more of these. Vosh, you are spot on. Anyone saying differently has no idea what evangelical experience is and always has been. It seems crazy this is just a thing that exists and isn't being talked about. Yep, I was a Baptist at one point. He is right 100%. I live in Missouri. Vosh is describing people that I meet every single day. Bad weather is called birthing pains by evangelicals. I was raised Jehovah's Witness. This is true. My Christian mom told me in middle school that if any of us got cancer, they would just let us die because it was God's will. All I'm saying is that when I say that evangelicals, Protestants are the worst it's easily the worst religion on earth, and no other religious group comes close, in part because of their ideology and in part because of their adjacency to American military power. I mean it. I'm not trying to be like an edgy... If you just flatten it down, you know, like just look at the textbooks or whatever, you know, oh, well, actually Hinduism's got some bad stuff. I don't fucking care. In practice, it's really tough to compete with this, you know, on the power scaling.
Been Christians for 2,000 years.
I was raised Baptist. They tried to steal my grandma's inheritance because you won't need it when the rapture happens. I was robbed of an education because my evangelical mother decided I need to be homeschooled, and I received no curriculum besides the annual Bible Bowl. This is why it makes me mad sometimes when chat engages in this reflexive anti-Reddit atheist shit, because I know for a fact that like a significant portion of the people watching me at the time it's happening have actually experienced what these people are like. And the anti-Reddit atheist people are just fucking internet cringe lords who are being reflexively antagonistic to anything they perceive as like, you know, lay internet bias, as if Reddit atheism wasn't informed by an actual militant evangelical cult that has controlled our country for decades. Like, it came out of somewhere, man. Maybe being a Reddit atheist would be more cringe in like Italy, where like 13% of the population believes in God, and for most people Catholicism just means you have a beautiful Catholic church to go like walk into now and again. But in America, there are like 100 million people here who want the world to end. It's a really big problem.
Have less of a right to the land than someone whose ancestors, the only thing we know about them is they lived in Latvia or Poland. They're Eastern European. How does that work?
They're Jewish.
By what definition?
They're Jewish by their
But how do we know they have any connection
they're
to
Jewish
the Jews
by their faith. They're Jewish
Bible?
by the connection to the language. Jewish by the connection to the Torah.
But how do we know that Bibi, specifically Bibi's ancestors, ever lived here? How do we know that?
I'm not sure if I understand your question.
How do we know if the Prime Minister of Israel's ancestors ever lived?
Maybe I could ask you, how do we know they didn't? I mean,
well, it's on the basis of the claim that they did that all kinds of things happen. People are displaced. There's a money flow. I mean, it's a big question. A lot hangs on this. It's not some theoretical thing like, ooh, did my grandparents do this or do that? It's like, no, we have a right to be here because my ancestors were here. Okay, how do we know they were here?
I'm totally unable to process what you're trying to get at.
Incredible stuff to see into the mind of the people who are pushing this, How many people believe in anthropogenic climate change by country? Look how fucking bad it is here. Oh, how interesting. Majority of most surveilled nations who see climate change as a major threat. The United States and Israel are the two lowest countries in who sees it as a major threat. How interesting. I wonder if there's a shared ideology, some kind of Abrahamic doctrine about the end of the world that might invalidate. Lower than fucking India, lower than Poland, lower than Nigeria. About 4 in 10 U.S. adults believe humanity is living in the end times. How the fuck do you fix this, man? Ooh. A lot of historically black Protestant. These are Protestants. U.S. Protestants in evangelical and historically black traditions especially. Yeah, historically black Protestants. What does historically black mean? They probably pulled it by church, right? So like historically black church. There are different denominations of like Baptist church depending on, yeah. Anyway, dude, look at the difference between Protestant and Catholic. Of Protestant, 55% think we're living in the end times. 27% Catholic. Massive difference. Huge difference. Catholics are in line with other religions, or unaffiliated, or nothing in particular. 9% of atheists. I think a lot of people here don't necessarily think that the end times means religious. Like, they might think the end times like nuclear war or climate change or something. But the fact that there's a huge spike with Protestants pretty clearly signals like that's a religious motivation. Global warming, God, end times. I would love to see, yeah, like how many people think groups that are likely to believe God controls the climate, therefore people can't be causing global warming. Tea Party members, 38. Conservative Republicans, 31%. Evangelical and born-again Christians, 30%. I feel like this polling's a bit too specific. Here, we're getting a little bit in the weeds. I think that these interview segments are really interesting, just understanding the ideology they come from. Just in terms of political affiliation, I think it's important to understand that the only reason this looks like a civilized man is because he's white and he's wearing a suit, right? But the stuff coming out of his mouth is ideologically indistinguishable from the most deranged shit you have ever heard in a different language coming out of like a member of ISIS. And everyone would, like, people would have no problem understanding where this is ideologically if some guy with an AK in the back of a truck with a turban or whatever was saying it. This guy's saying shit that is crazier than I think what you'd get from the average ISIS guy. The average ISIS guy was just like a thug, like radicalized by a militant, like a desire for a caliphate or whatever. They probably weren't ideologically bought in on every point. Huckabee has been pushing this line from the top for decades.
Israel goes to links that no other country, including ours, goes to in the middle of an urban war, and yet Israel ended up with fewer civilian deaths in an urban war than any urban war of record.
You said you didn't know how many civilian deaths there were, so how can you say that?
If you took Gaza's numbers, Hamas's numbers,
you said you don't know what the numbers are.
We don't.
You just told me that. Then how can you say it's a lower number?
But if you took the numbers that they reported, which is like 50,000, 25,000 of those were actual warriors. How many civilians? If you took all of their numbers,
range from 120 to 78. Those are the ones I just read. I don't know if that's.
There are mainline and evangelical Protestants. There are dozens of denominations, many of whom had faith leaders fighting ISIS, fighting ICE in the street. Clarify a bit. No, I won't. I say Protestants because it is a Protestant problem. But I have been saying evangelicals, by the way. Like, I have been saying evangelicals really consistently. So do I need to specify within the evangelical like subdivision? Because there are distinctions there too. I'm sorry, the feelings of Protestants are not my priority.
Real. I don't know either. I'm asking you.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, those numbers I've not heard, have not read. The numbers that I think are more reportable are somewhere in the 60,000 range.
Where do those come from?
from the Gaza Health Ministry,
But you
which
said
is
those were
Hamas.
invalid numbers.
I think they are. I don't think that they're accurate, but I'm saying let's
You're
just
saying
assume
they're inaccurate, but they prove that Israel's
I'm
doing
saying
a great job?
let's assume that the most widespread numbers, the largest numbers that have been reported out of Gaza by Hamas,
Yes.
let's assume they're true. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying they are true, but assume they're true. Let's just take them at their word. Then you still have a lower number.
Does Huckabee actually give a shit about Israel, or is he just an AIPAC shell? I mean, they're kind of one and the same, right? He's an evangelical Christian. He wants to end the world. He'll promote anything that is necessary to give Israel the listen. America does not need to do anything more for the world to end. Okay, there is no doctrinal requirement for American Christians to do anything more. Right now, the ball is in the court of Israel. Israel needs to retake their land, biblically their land. That's what sets it off. So that's the reason why so many of the people who are like pro-Israel Christians seem to love Israel more than anything in America. It's not because like that for them, it's about bringing about an end prophecy. You know, it doesn't really have anything to do with like their actual national preference.
Of civilians killed and in any urban warfare environment in modern history. Fact.
Is that a fact?
Yes.
What are you comparing it to?
To any urban warfare.
Name one.
Iraq.
Where in
Afghanistan?
Iraq? Where in Iraq? Where in Afghanistan? There aren't many urban areas in Afghanistan. I don't think there was any fighting in urban areas in Afghanistan.
Kabul?
I don't know. Were there pitched battles in Kabul over long periods of time? I don't.
20 years.
In Kabul? I don't.
Throughout all of Afghanistan.
But
What? No? Huckabee's wrong on this one. We took the cities pretty quickly in Afghanistan. It was fighting like in the mountains with the Taliban, and we had the ANA do it. It wasn't our guys either.
so what were those rates?
You're talking about what are the rates there? The number of people who were killed into the tens of thousands. I'm asking you to.
I don't know the answer. I've never heard of any.
There was a lot of urban fighting in Afghanistan. Yeah, but like past a point, it what it turned into. I mean, we were there for 20 years. You know.
This, you brought it up. You said the IDF has killed a lower proportion of civilians in urban warfare than in any urban conflict in modern history. I'd never heard that before. I don't know what are the controls for that. And you said, well, the U.S. military killed more civilians.
Would you agree that the real tragedy was that Hamas continued to force this war?
Hold on. You just once again said that the IDF is more humane than the United States military.
Kabul was a pretty notoriously bad insurgent bloodbath for years. Huckabee isn't that far off. It was bad for a long, long time. Okay, then you know what? I'll credit glory to Huckabee. I might be just misremembering. I remember everything I remember from Afghanistan was like prolonged combat in the rural areas. But yeah. It's so dangerous that Carlson is one of the only people in America speaking out for Palestine at this level. Yeah, but keep in mind that Tucker Carlson might be a neo-Nazi, or like he'll pretend to be one for the clicks or whatever. He's nowhere near as dangerous as people like Huckabee. The two big things in America, man: neoliberalism and Christian evangelicals. That's it. Those are the two. Everything else comes back to that. Tucker Carlson is at most, relative to these guys, an internet troll. For all of his power and all of his platform, nothing comes close to what Huckabee is advancing right now. Somebody just linked this from the Washington Post. Views on the creation of the state of Israel asked of evangelicals. And 80% of them said events were fulfillments of Bible prophecy that show we're getting close to the return of Jesus Christ. So 80% of evangelicals believe the creation of Israel was part of a biblical plan. It's a lot of people. Half of evangelicals support Israel because they believe it's important for fulfilling end times prophecy. No, Huckabee is totally off rate of civilian casualties. Oh, I'm not even tracking the civilian casualties thing. That's me as irrelevant. Obviously, the IDF is full of monsters. Far, far worse than the American military, like person to person, without question. Evangelical attitudes towards Israel study. God's promise to Abraham and his descendants was for all time. 80% agree. The existence of Israel fulfills prophecy about the second coming of Jesus Christ, where, yeah, black and evangelical at the highest point here consistently. The big distinction is the belief in the end times, though, not just the belief that the creation of the state of Israel is a fulfillment of biblical prophecy.
You just said that. You said in Iraq and Afghanistan, the U.S. military killed more civilians than the IDF did in Gaza. You just told me that. I never heard that before. And my question is, how do you know that? What are those numbers?
And I'm trying to
And yet Crusaders were killing Jews constantly. The Crusaders were Catholics, not evangelicals. Totally different. Evangelicals are barely even Christian. They're more of a cult sect than they are like an actual legitimate like branch of the Christian faith.
explain to you that there were extraordinary efforts to keep
You
the
don't
number
know the numbers,
of
do you?
I think they were tens of thousands. I'll get them for you.
Well, you brought it up. That's the only reason I'm pushing
but I'm wearing a flag. I work for a country, and you pretended or...
Which country do you work for, Huckabee, out of curiosity? I'm really curious. Which country do you work for?
alleged that somehow I'm not loyal to this and that I'm criticizing my own country,
they did
and
a
I'm
better
not.
job than the U.S. military in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I said, what are the numbers? And you said, I don't know. So on what basis are you making the claim that the IDF in Gaza spared more civilians?
This is worse than ISIS. They believe in a caliphate or some shit. Yeah, no, for sure. The evangelicals have both the desire and the means to end the world. Yeah.
Worse than the U.S. Army and Marine Corps did in Afghanistan and Iraq. Why are you saying that? Like, on what basis are you saying that?
From the conversations that I've had with the people who fought there. And I don't have the exact numbers for you.
Talking to IDF soldiers. Sorry, there's just a lot of data out there on this. Israel's actions in Gaza. Guess which one the pink bar is. Thinking about the Israeli military action in Gaza, which statement best describes what you think, or are you unsure? Israel is defending its interest and its military actions are justified. Pink bar. Israel's gone too far. Pink bar. Not sure. Yeah. Very, very, very distinct. Restricting U.S. aid to Israel. Evangelicals are the least likely to support restricting aid and the most likely to oppose restricting aid. And again, I'm upset with you, Vosh, just because Islamic orgs are stupid and weak doesn't mean you can dismiss them. They're fucking shit up in Europe. There's nothing. For one, I said ISIS. You think ISIS is active in Europe meaningfully? Don't be stupid. For two, there is nothing any Islamic group anywhere in the world is doing that is even remotely as dangerous as what evangelicals are doing right now. Nothing comes close to inflaming permanent war in the Middle East for greater Israel and also climate change denialism. There's nothing. Like the damage that is going to be done long term because of climate change, which is advanced on our interest, by the way. We are 100% the predominant cultural force that is opposed. Look at the Paris Accords, man. We pulled out of those. Like, we are insanely aggressively in favor of worsening it, it seems. The Republicans don't even acknowledge it exists. Democrats are milquetoast on it because there's so much cultural pressure to not like overcommit to the issue. That will kill orders of magnitude more people than ISIS could ever behead. ISIS could fill they could drain the Dead Sea and fill it with dismembered bodies, and they would not come close to killing as many people as what climate change is going to do. That's probably an exaggeration. Filling up the Dead Sea with bodies would probably be like lots and lots of people. But we are looking at many millions of people who are going to die. Yeah. The cultural narrative about like Muslims being the most reactionary of the Abrahamic religions is and always has been fucking like, it's just racism, you know. There's no comparison. I'm from the Middle East, went to Israel for a business trip years ago. I saw American tourists in important biblical places, and the tour guide was basically talking about how Armageddon will start, etc. They were crying and praying for the end times. Most surreal thing I've witnessed. Yeah, that's what Israel... Why do these Christians like Israel so much? They literally think it's the epicenter of the return of Christ. Like, that's why they're like this. Yeah, it's Christian Disneyland. Evangelical Disneyland. So glad that's heretical in Catholicism. Yeah, well... Maybe the Vatican should invade the United States. Do you think Israel's evangelical policy as well? Yeah, of course. That's what I've been saying. Yeah. Objectively, yeah. The support for Israel is an unholy combination of Christian evangelicals, Jewish supremacists, and a whole bunch of military and tech companies based in America that might have like Israeli offshoots. It's a whole bunch of money and politics all balled together, you know? Like, a lot of people want this. The military and tech people want war because they use it to test out their goods and sell equipment to the U.S. military and the IDF. The Jewish supremacists want war because they want to slaughter every Arab that lives. And the Christian evangelicals want war because they believe the creation of greater Israel fulfills the biblical prophecy. So there's a whole, like, it's this whole, like, trifecta of interests that come together on support for Israel getting to do whatever it wants. If anything, if Israel actually does get Greater Israel, by the way, expect them to get a lot crazier. A lot crazier. Because once they have Greater Israel and the rapture doesn't happen, I think that they're going to... That energy has to go off somewhere. Yeah, they're going to need an even Greater Israel. They're going to invade Turkey. Well, now I'm talking myself into the evangelical perspective. All right, last one we're going to watch. Because how could we not?
Are millions of Epstein files still classified? Why do you think that is?
I have no idea. I haven't kept up with that. I've never met the man. I don't know him.
You haven't kept up with the Epstein disclosure?
I mean, only from a distance. I'm 6,000 miles away from D.C. these days, and I'm pretty sure that there's so much going on.
The current president
In a country that Epstein loved very much. Also, what the fuck does that have to do with keeping up with the news?
of Israel, current president, who I know you know, President Herzog,
Know him very well.
apparently was at Pedo Island. That's what it says in the disclosures. And of course, we know that the former prime minister, Ehud Barak, was living on and off at Epstein's house. So still living high-level Israeli officials are directly implicated in Epstein's life, if not his crime. So I would think that you'd be following this.
Only I was not aware that there was any connection with President Herzog. I would be surprised to hear that, and knew there was about the former prime.
People like to pretend evangelicals are any better than Muslims because terrorism, forgetting that the LRA and other African warlords are evangelical cultists. Yeah, we didn't even get into the fact that a significant amount of the religious right in Africa was backed by American evangelicals, like the anti-gay death penalty law in Uganda, like American evangelical practitioners, preachers, missionaries, whatever, heading over to Africa and essentially like radicalizing people and pledging them support. Yeah, funded by like the immense coffers of the evangelical denomination, the unbelievable amount of money they have.
Minister, who apparently had a lot of dealings with Epstein.
Business dealings, and by the way, I'm not alleging anything, but I mean, it's in the Epstein files, and I don't know that I've heard the current president of Israel respond to it, but he is listed as a visitor to Pedo Island, so that's kind of a big deal. I wonder, considering there are so many suggestions in the files, as I'm sure you know, of sexual abuse, and given that Jeffrey Epstein was a convicted sex offender, I wonder why the administration you work for would be holding millions of files, which I believe belong to the public, hidden for, quote, national security reasons. What would those national security reasons be, do you think?
Honestly, I think you've probably got more access to the White House sometimes than I do. You should ask them.
Well, but you're the government official representing that White House.
In Israel. And I represent the U.S. in Israel to the Israeli government from the U.S. government.
It's inexcusable. The best interviewer in this topic is Tucker Carlson. Yeah, the only reason Tucker Carlson's acting this way, because keep in mind, Tucker Carlson was with Fox News for decades. He interviewed people like Huckabee. He probably interviewed Huckabee plenty of times. He never talked like this before. He's unhinged. He's untethered now. And he can do what he wants. Every single news agency in America could do this if they wanted to. They don't, because they're cucked to one of those three groups. Again, the big three are the MIC/tech companies, the money interests, Jewish supremacists, and everyone they associate with. Like Epstein was friends with a bunch of people who unironically just hate Arabs. Ben Shapiro is one of those types. Or Christian evangelicals. Those three groups dictate American foreign policy regarding Israel, and they are the reasons why journalists can't ask obvious questions about the way, and by the way, all of this makes it that much crazier that Biden was that much of a diehard Zionist, because he was Catholic. Biden didn't have super deep, close ties with the MIC. He's never really been a big, like a lobbyist adjacent in the money guy. He's not a Christian evangelical, and he's not a Jewish supremacist, to my knowledge. Truly the love of the game. It's actually insane how bad he was on that topic, considering everything, you know? Jen Psaki was a PR person for an Israeli military company. Is that true? I actually didn't know that. Like, before she worked for Obama's re-election campaign? Biden spokesperson Jen Psaki worked for an Israeli spy firm, Israeli spy tech company which monitored Palestinians at West Bank checkpoints. Earned at least $5,000 as a crisis communication consultant for AnyVision. Okay, so she didn't work for them in like an ongoing contract, but she received like consultancy pay. That might not be that damning in the long run, considering how much Israeli money there is in America, because it's American money, right? In the just circling around a bit. But yeah, that's pretty bad. In 2019, the Israeli newspaper Haaretz reported that AnyVision's facial recognition technology was being secretly used by Israel's occupation army to monitor West Bank Palestinians on checkpoints in the way into Israel while using a network of cameras deep inside the West Bank. And they paid at least $5,000 to Jen Psaki.
But honestly, nobody has presented that to us.
Well, now
we
that
have
you
a
know
pretty
that
dynamic situation here. I don't know if you know that or not, but there's a lot going on in this part of the world, and frankly,
I do hate
that
the
has not
Antichrist.
been
Yeah.
top line item.
But you're surprised to hear that the current president of Israel, whom you know, is listed as a visitor to Pedo Island.
Had never heard that. Never heard it even in the Israeli press.
Are you going to ask him next time you see him?
I'll be happy to talk to him almost every week.
Jesus Christ. Anyway, like obvious critical support for Tucker Carlson. These people want to end the world. There's nothing Carlson can do or wants to do that could ever do as much harm as people like Mike Huckabee have done. Not even close. Not by an order. Like Nick Fuentes got as close as he's ever going to get to Nazi power in the White House, and his response to it was say that it was gay and cringe to have to pretend to care that Bad Bunny did the Super Bowl halftime show, and said like, I'm going to stick to trolling from now on. I don't think the internet neo-Nazi clan has any interest in real power. Mike Huckabee does and has had it for decades and is using it to do a lot of harm. More harm than I can really comprehend, I guess. I don't know. Really, really, really bad. Why is he doing this interview? I don't know. These people are all in their own bubble. Can you tell us out of the loop what Huckabee has done? He, for decades, has been I mean, leaving aside all the specifics, the thrust of it is that for decades he has been one of the loudest proponents for American evangelical policy as it relates to Israel, which involves a lot of other stuff, which is bad. He's probably doing the interview because he's an insane fanatic. Where's him playing Sweet Home Yerushalayim again? Sweet Home Yerushalayim, something the Torah. I don't know. Apparently, after this interview, Tucker had his entire crew interrogated in Israel and passports seized. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Great stuff. So yep, he interviewed Huckabee, and then right after was Israeli security kidnapped him and questioned him. Cool stuff. He had that interview in Israel. Yeah, that's where Huckabee is. He's our ambassador to them. Wasn't that debunked as fake news? No, I don't think so. Was it? Wait, was it? If this is fake news, I haven't heard about that. I'd like to hear that. My understanding is that this did happen. They are claiming he is exaggerating standard processes. If there is one thing that I trust less than Tucker Carlson, it is the Israeli government. if we're going to, yeah, if the debunking here was directed by Israel, I very much trust Tucker Carlson more than I do Israel. Easily, yeah. Israel's as trustworthy as Russia? I'd say less so, probably in the long run. It's the big difference, like in terms of global destabilization, is again, it's the death cult difference. You know, Russia and Israel are both like super duper dishonest, propagandistic, murderous countries. But like Israel is backed and is repped largely by people who actually want the world to end. Whereas I think a lot of the Russian oligarchs don't. They just want to like play it really risky with advancing Russian interests. Again, it is a bad bitches situation. You know, we don't need to like it's not to suggest that Russia. Yeah, I think that the people in the oligarchs in Russia want to live essentially, which is Aren't the oligarchs in Russian government in general big Israel supporters? Not really big Israel supporters. I think more like they have a shared interest in mayhem to an extent. But I don't think there's really an intellectual tradition in Russia for advancing the end of the world. So after all this talk, what do you think Trump thinks about this endgame religious plot? I don't think he knows about it. I think Trump is obviously atheist. I don't think he gives a fuck. He might know about it. He might not. He probably just thinks it's like stupid and crazy. He just likes he talks with the military people, that's it. Really? Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.